Yeah, well, thank you for coming to our dead legal community. You're one of the as for me, most prominent scholars in AI, at least if counting by books, by the number of books. I read two of them, and as far as I understand, the third one is coming, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I want to well, for those of our listeners who don't know who Joshua Gans is, he's a professor of the University of Toronto, uh, and in the Rotman School of Management, right?
That's correct.
Correct. Good. So I want to talk about three issues here. First is regulation of AI. You wrote a paper in the middle of this year about regulation of AI, regulation of copyright in after within the AI revolution, which you also wrote the paper about in the beginning of this year. And the third topic is the use of AI, the use of predictions in law in general. So I will have a couple of questions about the game theory and the economics of the code prediction of the court decisions. So my first question is, I think, very obvious. It's an all good question about what should go first, regulation first or technology first. So what do you think is the approach which the European Union is using by regulating the AI at this stage is right or not? Is it the right time to regulate AI? Maybe more general question.
Yeah. So, the usual motive for regulation is that we're concerned about the adoption of technology leading to certain harms that might be on consumers or the general population or various or the environment or things like that. And obviously when you realize those harms are going to occur and you know about them, you want to create incentives to mitigate them, or you want to, if you decide that the magnitude of the harms is too high, you might ban certain things, and there are plenty of examples of that. With respect to AI, the regulators have sort of looked at technology and said, "Oh, sometimes we've been too slow or whatever in the past, and harms have occurred." And then there are a whole lot of people who are raising all sorts of potential concerns regarding AI. So why don't we do something different this time? Why don't we get ahead of it and regulate ahead of time? Now, the problem with that is that we still don't really know what the harms are. If some of these theoretical harms are actually real harms, and we certainly don't know what the magnitude of the harms are. To be able to do a proper cost-benefit calculation on what we should do regarding artificial intelligence. And so that means that, that means essentially the regulators are kind of making guesses on these things. And as you know, with guesses, they're as likely to be right as wrong. So that seems to be the issue. And so I wrote a paper basically explaining, well, the problem is this uncertainty. We don't know what the harms are going to be. So how should we consider this? I mean, one possibility is that we slow everything down and we try to conduct very contained experiments or lab experiments and other things to see if these harms are really harms, and then we go from there. It's not unprecedented. We do that when we approve new medical treatments and things like that. We require examination and tests to be done. Of course, the difference between medical treatments and the adoption of AI is we kind of have some idea of what we're looking for with medical treatments. And moreover, if you test something on a few people, chances are it'll also apply to everyone else. So it's a very different environment. So the alternative, of course, is to let's let AI go, and then if there are some harms that emerge, we should deal with them then. And so that means, and why might you want to do that? You might want to do that because you actually get to see what the harms are, what their magnitude is, and craft an appropriate response to them. So it's not obvious at all that we should sort of jump and get ahead of things. In fact, it might be that the safest course is to let AI out for a bit and see how it goes. Now, I mean, people will come back and say, well, you might not be able to put the beast back in the bottle or whatever it is, you know, after a while. So in other words, that if we let a bit of AI adoption occur, it might be irreversible. And to be sure, that's a concern. So that might be something we want to think about of how we can make it more reversible. But you know, most things aren't completely irreversible. You can do something about them.
Well, if we change the word AI in what you were just saying to blockchain or to the internet, there will be like no difference, because I had the same, absolutely the same thoughts when the internet was like developing, and in 2016 when the blockchain was hyping. What is there anything different with the AI here?
I don't think so. There are people who talk about AI becoming this, you know, a weapon or something like that. It's very hard to control weapons when they're out there. There's also this residual concern of AI becoming self-aware, and then we're not able to again reverse the decision because AI is now controlling everything. You know, those are very, very speculative things to occur, and there's a lot of argument about them. I agree it would be terrible if we switched on an AI, let it go, and we destroyed everything. That would not be good. The problem is we just don't know what the probability of that is. And also we've seen no evidence.
That's what I wanted to ask. What's your estimation of the probability of that will destroy everything?
Well, I think with everything we're currently doing at the moment is, you know, almost zero is my guess. It's just I haven't seen anything that's been troubling, like nothing. And so I don't see it. And I think I think you know, it rests on a theory that a small AI that's very intelligent gets switched on, and it's intelligent enough to sort of protect itself and then build other AIs that are even smarter than it, and then eventually take everything else, take everything over. I mean, and that could occur, but there are also ways that we would notice that. You know, it's going to take some energy, it's going to take some resources, etc. So, you know, an AI doing that would probably play a very, very long game, where economists have calculated, well, if that's going to be the case, it's still not clear that we should give up all the returns to AI because it might take a long time for us to lose control of it.
Are you expecting anything like the crypto fall, which happened with blockchain and crypto, or .com crisis? Are you expecting anything with AI in the nearest future?
Oh, for sure. We're going to get a you know, speculative boom and bust. We do every time we get a significant technology.
Yeah, that's right.
So that will happen. Maybe happening already for all I know. But the difference between AI and blockchain, say, is that I think there's far more evidence that AI is of great use in and the blockchain has so far not panned out that way. So
I'm not sure that you were able to say that 5 years ago, that blockchain is not useful.
I was hoping it would be different. You know, I was looking to see it would be different, and I you know, I've written on the blockchain as well, and I just but you know, after a time, you got to say, okay, it's been a while. Where is it?
That's right. But don't you feel that we will be able to say the same in 5 years when AI will show nothing, no
Oh,
new
we
business
will.
model?
Well, it's already showing something.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I
good.
don't I don't think that would be the case. It's very, very clearly already showing something. How widespread it would be in transformation, no, it's hard to say, but there's a lot to it right now. Yeah.
So let's move to copyright, which is my primary interest, because I'm a copyright, I'm an IP lawyer. So uh, when I read your article, which you published in February, and you are discussing the fair use
Right.
for the fair use regime for the materials which are used by the AI to learn.
Yeah.
And this reminded me of the books by Larry Lessig. He was writing about the fair use in the internet. That idea didn't go through, but he his copyleft model gave rise to the open source movement. And second, uh, the uh, the internet revolution built the new business models, in particular the subscription model.
Right.
So a lot of software moved to the cloud. So do you, from the purely, I want to start from the second part. So purely from the economic point of view, do what business models may arise out of the wide use of AI?
Well, there could be all sorts of things that occur. You know, there are there's questions that we don't know the answer to yet. You know, at the moment, the copyright disputes are all between people who wrote and created content prior to anyone even imagining that it could be useful, so useful in AI. And moreover, we're not 100% sure how useful the content is. It's sort of like, it's definitely useful in the aggregate, but any individual one is not, it's not clear that it's very useful. And so you know, you kind of look at that and say, well, I don't really want to have past claims holding everything up, because it would take so long to negotiate the right licenses and things like that. But at the same time, you know, now that AI is here, we know that AI is still going to need a lot of that content, and it won't be generating the content itself necessarily. So we don't want to stifle what might be the useful creation of training data for AI. And in fact, there are already companies such as Scale.ai that are employing people to create various forms of training data to be able to power these models. And I'm not sure where it comes in with the creative arts and other things like that. It's all kind of very, very murky at the moment. So what I was reacting to mostly was, I don't want to see the current progress being held up by the past. But I do think we're going to have to see new things evolve. And, you know, that's a tricky issue, because at the moment, AI has been developed alongside the internet, which is largely open. And in other words, AI has been able to be trained just on being able to observe what people have already put out there on the internet. If there is valuable content for AI that you know, could have a marketed value for that, you'd expect that content to no longer be as freely available, and to move to some other to move some other way, which can, you know, provide the right incentives, etc. But we're not there yet, because simply we just don't know. The interesting thing is the sales issues, we don't know what is useful and what is important. And we kind of know in broad aggregates, it's important to have chips and data centers that can process these things. It's important to have talent that knows how to make the AI algorithms work. But what does AI need to be trained on to continue to be useful and stuff like that? No idea yet. We really don't know what is valuable and what is not. And it was so in the early stages yet. So again, it comes back to the same issue with the regulation. You know, we could take preemptive action and put up all sorts of walls and rights and legal frameworks and things like that. But the chances of it being fit for purpose are very, very low. It would be much better to see how this thing evolves. And then when we identify some issues and some poor incentives and some property rights that need to be made explicit, do that.
I want to dive deeper in the question of the use of the copyrighted material and the potential fair use regime for that. We used to have an interview with Professor Burkhard Schaffer, and he wanted to ask you a question, but since we are not doing the online, we're recording. I will let me take the concept he wrote in one of his papers and ask what you think about that. So his concept is called the Johnny 5 concept. It's the robot who is understanding the literature and consuming the literature. And what Professor Schaffer is saying, this scenario raises the question of whether a robot's reading of a copyrighted book is actually the use of the copyright. Does it generate the use of the copyright? So if yes, then we need to have a regime for that use. But if not, then we should not. So I think it's quite the same as we had problem maybe with Microsoft Windows. If installing Windows generate actually the infringement, or this is only the like the only use of the material. So what do you think? Does the learning by those materials generate the reading of the materials?
Those are the sorts of things that I think are useful to be thinking about. I mean, it's a bit how I came at this problem, is that, when I thought about an AI being trained on literature, and telling me stuff about that, what it's learned, I thought that this doesn't seem any different than me reading or you reading these books and then telling somebody else about them or answering questions about them, and we don't consider that a violation of copyright.
That's right.
Even though when I read it, it is sort of it seems to be similar to making a copy. I mean, the problem is that with a robot or a computer, you can often see the copy. Or even in these large language models, when they have to have a copy of the original thing in order to make it to process it such that it can be used as training data. So they may have the copy for just a microsecond in its copied form. Before they've already transformed it and used it some other way. They've never given the copy to anyone else, but they've technically used it. And so there really is a bit of a reckoning now with copyright law about, is it the copy, or what constitutes a use and what then constitutes a fair use of that of that copy. And from an economic point of view, we sort of don't get into these sorts of semantics, but I can imagine that working out the legal principle there, the thing that can be consistently applied. And I kind of find that fair use likely gets at it, because fair use is saying, well, it was the thing that you used a transformation of the original work. And it's literally in the name GPT, transformation, which I don't think they chose for copyright law purposes. But it is transformational. It's like you cannot take the thing that they're actually using for any reasonable person or any person or any computer and back out where it came from. So that seems transformational to me.
I want to return to Larry Lessig's copyleft again, and don't you think that the copyleft movement may rise again? I mean, as as a result of the copyleft movement, the open source licenses rose, which, for example, Wikipedia is based on that. Do you see any economic reasons for that, for the creators to distribute their materials based on the open source licenses?
Well, so the question is, the copyleft movement is basically saying we haven't got the balance of incentives right, that we need to weigh more the incentives to produce things that use the content material than to generate the material itself. We've got adequate incentives for that, even without strong copyright. And I think that's largely part of the argument going on here as well. But as I sort of mentioned before, we don't know for sure. There may be certain content that you want created purely for the use in AI. And therefore, to say that that content can be just copied will sort of subvert potential business models for it. So we'll end up in the same place. And we did with open source and other things like that. We've got a mix. We've got a mix going on. The usefulness of the open source movement and Creative Commons licenses is they allow the content owner to choose to make it clear to everybody what their rights they were going to assert were going to be. And so I think that resolves uncertainty. And if it resolves uncertainty, that's great too.
So do you see any sense of creating like the specific license for the AI use of the like, I don't know, text, pictures, videos, etc., like we have with open source software, for example?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, I can imagine the same rationale being there.
Yeah.
And the reason for that rationale is very simple: is that if I'm happy for my stuff to be used to train AI. If I do nothing, it may be that somebody else eventually buys the copyright to that stuff, and they may have a different preference. They may want to use it to extract some rents from AI people, whereas but I can now assert my preference on that content by agreeing to this license. And I suspect the Creative Commons licenses already allow that. There may be, I guess, maybe something that people would be comfortable about it being used in AI training for the millisecond of use, as opposed to being available for free reading and stuff like that. So maybe there's a scope.
I have another reference to Professor Burkhard Schaffer in this copyright part of the talk. So his second concept is the library of Babel. So it's the library of all possible texts which AI can potentially generate. So it's like a huge corpus of texts, so that any new text will be similar to the existing one. So I understand that this is quite a theory, which I don't want to discuss right now, like as a theory. But do you see any economic reasons of this concept? For example, when quantum computing will be on the rise, and we have a lot of quantum data centers, I think that someone will create that. So does it have an economical reason?
Well, we already know that AI can do a pretty good job at sort of guessing what was already in the text, even if it doesn't get it one for one. So some of that is already there, and the big issue is whether that's useful or not, which is as useful as the original text. And I don't know, but you can imagine. There's some issues there. That's a little too murky for me to know. I can't even speculate.
Okay. So let's move to the last part. We have 5 minutes left.
Yes.
Are you okay if we extend that or not?
No, I've got.
Okay, good. So I will ask 2 questions. I will mix them. So I wanted to ask about the predictions of the code decisions, but not in general, but specifically. I think that when we predict the code, when the AI predicts the code decision, the judge may be biased by that prediction. So, do you see any problem of bias here? So, I mean, when the judge sees the prediction, he uses his quick part of the brain, but not the slow one, and he will just use what the prediction machine suggested without thinking about that, like without actually creating the decision.
Yes. Well,
Does
we
it have
already
any
have
reason?
evidence on that. People have already done experiments on that, on whether judges, whether if judges just relied on the AI or other prediction rather than their own judgment, whether that would enhance or reduce bias. And it does two things. One is it makes the decisions more accurate. So it is better to listen to AI. You're less likely to get it wrong. And secondly, it also reduces bias as well. And we can choose and we can tweak how much bias it reduces by changing those algorithms. So at the moment, the judges on average aren't that great. is what we're finding out, at least in some really high stakes things such as decisions to grant bail and things like that. How it comes up for something like tax law or something like that, I don't know, but I imagine that AI could do a very, very good job at making it easier for the judges to come to an accurate and consistent decision. So I don't. Not only am I not concerned about that, I think it's going to make things better.
And the last question, the most complicated, and we have 2 minutes left for that. I will make the summary of your latest article on the use of the AI for the in negotiations, and so it will be useful if you comment on that. So my understanding is that from purely economic perspective, the use of AI to predict the outcome of the negotiations is negative. So you do not recommend to use AI for that from purely economic point of view. Am I right, or I understood your article incorrectly?
Well, no, the article's a bit subtle. It says what stops us reaching agreements prior to trial, because it's better if we do agree prior to trial. And what stops that is when we've got differing beliefs about what the likely outcome of that trial is going to be. The plaintiff and defendant. What AI prediction does is it makes the subjective more objective, and it makes it more likely that you'll have some additional information that you would lead to an agreement. In other words, if you may have your own beliefs, but the AI might correct them and say,
that's right. You won't have the additional information, and you also will have like increased costs for the prediction.
You will have some costs associated with that. But the good news is it's kind of like it was a bit of a complicated argument, but maybe you'll want to save on the cost of even using the AI and come to an agreement as well. So there's just an additional cost. So there's an additional reason to agree. So there are a few things going on. It's a theoretical paper. So I don't know if it's going to happen in practice or have an ultimate impact. But again, I feel that they're in a lot of complicated cases and other things like that. The use of AI may actually facilitate efficiency, leading to an agreement. I think ultimately that, at least that's what I believed, what I was trying to convey in that article. I may not have done so.
You must have written in the abstract that this is just a theory, because I created the Excel spreadsheets and I was trying to implement that model. I did a lot of a lot of calculations about that. But yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you so much for this interview. And
no worries. And best of luck with CDL Estonia there as well.
Good luck. Bye. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.